Hello, it's Nikki. How are you doing? Welcome to a new 5-part series where I am sharing just 20 of some of the biggest mistakes that I have made over the last 20 years. And this is important for me. And I can say it with a smile because I'm over it. I've found a way forward. I've resolved many of these things. And I am looking back on it with a lot of compassion and kindness. I'm not doing this of like, oh my gosh, I messed this up so much. I only knew what I knew at the time. And that is the process that many of us go through. We're not going to get it right straight away. Everything is a work in progress. But the way that I wanted to share today is not only to highlight this. And so maybe as you're watching, you go, oh my gosh, I've done that. Right, I'm not going to do that. So maybe it will shortcut that process for you. And secondly, I'm going to give you the resolve. So I'm going to give you what happened next. So what did I actually do to get myself out of that situation? Because again, I want to be useful. I want to help you. I want to give you tools rather than just staying in the problem or the moment. So let's get into it, shall we? Here's my list. As always, if anything sparks interest as I'm talking, if you think, oh my gosh, I really do need help with that, just head over to my website, nickyraby.com/work with me. There are loads of different ways to work with me. I can help you, I can support you, and get things moving and shaking in the right direction. So lesson number 1. Oh, before I start this, let me just give you a bit of context to this story. I trained as an actor and graduated 20 years ago. And for the first 10 years of that acting career, I was acting quite a lot and then doing a lot of in-between jobs, which I wouldn't say were career jobs essentially, because they were kind of odds and sods essentially. So I was doing a bit of retail, I was doing a bit of babysitting, I was doing a bit of like online stuff, I was doing a bit of agenting, and I was really kind of in full support of my acting career. And I got to a stage just before my 30th where I thought, right, I need to step things up a little bit. I still wanted to continue to act, and I do so to this day, but I really need to look at the way that I'm running my life and business differently. My life and career, I would say at that point. I wanted to have a family, I wanted to move house, and all of these sorts of things. And so I had to explore different avenues. Now, I didn't actually know that I was going to become a coach. I went on a free weekend training with no idea really what it was. Somebody just suggested it to me and I thought, why not? Let's just go and see what this is all about. So I did. But by the end of the weekend, I'd somehow signed up and I was on the training course and I paid them a lot of money. And it was really from that point, from 30, and I'm nearly 42 now, that I started a new way of doing things. So having a portfolio career in the way that it's looking today. From that coaching came speaking, came the podcast, came writing, came different forms of income. And that's been what's happening, what's been happening for the last 10 years, essentially. I've had 2 children in that time, and it's been a journey, as you will hear. So lesson number 1, when I qualified as a coach, I had all the skills, all of the knowledge, the expertise. I'd had so many hours of practice, but I had no idea really how to translate that into welcoming paying clients and offering it as a business. And what I did was through my naivety and through my insecurity, I tried to make everything very, very perfect and very professional. So I spent a lot of money on things like business cards and a name and a domain and a logo and a font and all of these things. But what I hadn't really thought of was how can I test this so it works? So essentially, I had designed, if it was a physical product, I had designed the packaging without really knowing what was going to be inside. So then I would get the packaging back and it wouldn't fit, or it just felt all a bit out of whack because it wasn't based on anything. I didn't really know who I was talking to, what my niche was, what I was trying to sell. I didn't know any of those things because I hadn't done the practical thing of actually going out and selling how I could help people. And so very quickly, I realized that lots of that money that I had spent, should I say wasted? Sort of. Yes. I mean, it did kind of get me off the ground. I did probably make the money back, but I spent a lot of effort looking at different shades of green when I should have actually been working on my visibility, for example. And so what I have now realized when I have built new arms of my business and of my life as well is that I can do it imperfectly. And that's not to say it's a shambles and I'm just going to chuck anything out there, because that really is not the aim. But am I going to get lost and stuck in trying to make things perfect? I've seen this a lot with weddings, actually, that people go, oh my goodness, I'm going to put so much planning into what the favors are going to be or what color the napkins are. But for the most part, having been to a lot of weddings over the years, you don't remember that. You just remember, like, I've got songs that remind me of, like, for example, my friend Beth and her husband Tom. I just always remember as all dancing to Proud Mary, and that being a brilliant moment. I have no idea what the favor was or the place setting or even who I was sitting next to, but it's just those kinds of moments. And so I want you to give yourself full grace to give yourself permission to sometimes close parts down for refurbishment. So if you look at a country house, for example, or an art gallery or a museum, very rarely do they shut the whole thing and go, right, we're just going to have to rebuild over the next 2 years. They're going to block certain areas off. And so if you are thinking about making changes and tweaks in your business, give yourself permission to say, I'm going to close that down for a bit and just see how I go and see if I can rebuild this part slowly but surely. And see my daughter in the background saying, I need a wee. But we are where we are. Anyway, so yes. Reconstructing and giving yourself permission to change and edit has been really, really useful. And sometimes that has meant spending more hours than I would like, going, right, I'm just going to have to spend 2 days on this and take my website offline and turn this ship around. And that's okay as well. That's all good. Lesson number 2. The mistake that I made was I was learning from so many people who were different from me. So I qualified when I was 31, and then I had my son when I was 33. So I hadn't really established myself fully in this new career of just doing stuff for myself. So I was still contracted to do various other bits of work. And so by the time my son came along, I felt that I was very much still in a guessing game of thinking, right, how do I make this work? And what happened was I was learning from so many people on the internet who were saying, work 16-hour days, keep smashing it, keep giving free value for 6 months and not earning any money. And I couldn't do that. I had a family to support and I had to make money. I mean, that's basically what it was. And so I kept almost subconsciously picking up language that was not serving me from people who are driving gold cars, or they're a bit shouty on YouTube, or all of those things. And so what I would say now is to work with people and learn from people that you have some sort of association with. So this doesn't have to be that they look and feel and have the exact background from you, far from it. But people who value the same things, people who have similar ethics to you, things, maybe you share things that are equally as important to each other. And I can give you one example of, I guess this was the line in the sand of thinking, no, I've got to do things differently. I remember having a meeting with a coach, somebody that I was looking to work with for 6 months to really help me grow my business. And this was a sales call, and it was all like, okay, let's go, let's do this. Have you got your credit card, Nikki? Like, do you want to change your life? And my son was only about 6 months at the time, and I was literally on my knees. I was so exhausted. I was so broken. And I remember the coach saying, you've got to get up before your child in the morning. And they said, what time does your child get up? And I joked, but I could have had a little cry at that point as well, of saying, like, well, which time do they get up? And they were like, what time do they get up for the day? And I said, oh, they get up about 5 in the morning. Right, 5 in the morning. Okay, you got to get up at 4. But what this person didn't understand and didn't pick up on, even though I told them, was that I had probably been up at 9, half 11, 5 to 12, 10 past 2, quarter past 3, 10 to 4, and then eventually 5 for the day. So looking at ways that I would go and work out at 4 o'clock in the morning after being up all night, it just wasn't going to work for me. So this is your full reminder today to really think about what it is that you need in terms of help and ignore the rest. Lesson number 3. Oh my goodness. When I look back at my old posts, and this is not me being like, oh my gosh, I just didn't know what I was doing, but this is me being like very honest with you. I was so generic. I was so vanilla. I was just kind of skirting around the outside, and I was just really boring. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not those things in real life. I mean, some people might be like, yeah, she doesn't get out much, does she? Or, you know, I'm not here, there, and everywhere the whole time. But I do have stories. I do have humor. I do have personality. I do have enthusiasm. And when you meet me in real life, my hope is that you will get all of that. And yet when and even like my first lot of pictures, I was very coachy. I was very like, yes, absolutely. I mean, I may have even like worn a pashmina or something, you know. But I just lost myself in it. And this can be really not dangerous, my goodness, but it's a slippery slope, because when you lose yourself in it, when you're trying to be all the things to all the people, you don't actually end up saying what it is that you want to say. And for the most part, people want to work with you because they like you and they like the way that you say things. They like the way that you, and this has happened so often actually when I've broken down a concept and people go, oh, I've never heard it said in that way before. It's like, well, yes, because you've never heard this story that accompanies with it. And I'm very visual the way that I teach and I share, and I'm always looking for those tangible examples. So yes, that was a mistake that I really made, of like losing myself and just becoming really boring in that. So now I don't do that. Now I tell stories. Now I'm looking at different industries for inspiration. I'm always looking at ways where I can keep it light. I can keep it interesting or sparky, or people go, what did she just say again? I want that to be part of it. That does mean, though, I need to sometimes close down notifications online, because otherwise you can pick up on all of those things. And it also means that I have to create space to become inspired. Yeah, that was lesson number 3. Ooh, number 4. This is a difficult thing because, is that alarm going to go off? Yes, it has. Brilliant. Now, I don't want you to just ignore the numbers, ignore the figures, ignore the signs, ignore what makes sense. But I was so logical. And if something made sense on paper, then I felt like I ought to do it. Now, because I've been an agent, because I am an actor, when I first started coaching, everybody told me just to coach actors. But the truth of it was, that felt very limited for me. I didn't just want to teach people how to get a good headshot or how to work on their mindset. For me, I wanted to do a range of different things. And for too long, I just did the logical thing of like, well, I've got experience with actors, so maybe I should do that. But once I figured out ways that I could do things that actually lit me up, that actually sparked my interest, my business grew. And yes, I did work with some actors. Yes, I still work with some actors right now, but I work with so many different other types of people, and that's really exciting to me. So how have I transitioned out of that? Okay, so I am now very heart-centered. And even when everything makes sense on paper, if I don't feel it, if the spark isn't there, if the connection there isn't there, like if you went on a date, for example, you might be looking at going not their fact file, but like what they say, or maybe they've got a good job, or maybe they're good looking, but you don't feel it. Pay attention to that. And I guess another follow-up question that I always do as part of this is saying, how could I reach, if I am going down this alley with this, how can I create more of the ideal version? And paying attention to that. So yes, it still has a bit of a mix, like it has to make sense. I don't want to waste my time creating something that nobody wants. But equally, I know that if it feels good, if my heart's in it, I'm more likely to sell it. That's it for today. I hope you have enjoyed part 1. Come back tomorrow for part 2 and rate, review, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And come over to the freebies house and get some free trainings from me. I would absolutely love that. And I'll catch you then. Bye.